So we've seen how to effectively work and manipulate our colors here in Photoshop CS3, but what about if we want to take away our colors or manipulate our images using grayscale conversions? Well, there's many ways to convert your image into a black and white print, but there's a new and exciting way here inside of Photoshop CS3 that really blows them all away and is absolutely going to revolutionize the way people convert to black and white. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw this image away. I'm simply going to do that by using Control W on the PC, Command W on the Mac. I'm going to say that I don't want to save these changes, and I'm going to go back into hardstare.jpg. That's located in your Chapter5 project files folder. And what I'm going to do with this image is I'm going to come down here to the adjustment layer icon, and I'm going to choose black and white. Now, once I do that, it gives you this standardized grayscale conversion, which is not bad, but it's really not particularly good either, simply because of the fact that it's not consistent with each image that it brings in here, and it really can generate some very, very bad results. So the great thing about this is Adobe has built in several presets up here in this preset menu that you can use as sort of jumping off points to start your black and white conversion. Now you can cycle through these, and I'm going to go through a few of them now. There's the blue filter, green filter, which is extremely hot in this case, high contrast blue, high contrast red, infrared, which creates some very interesting effects on some photographs, maximum black, maximum white, red, and yellow. Now, none of those particularly jumped out at me as something that I would want to use as my black and white conversion. So, lucky for me, they have built in all of these sliders right here, much the same as they have the HSL grayscale sliders inside of Adobe's Camera Raw. However, there's one aspect of this that truly blows Camera Raw away and makes this method of converting to black and white the absolute best. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to start with that initial grayscale conversion here. And I'm going to do this simply because I can use this as a jumping off point to really maximize this black and white's overall appearance. So instead of messing with these sliders here, which is what you would have to do if you're in Camera Raw, I can simply come over here into the image window itself, and I can click. And when I click inside the image window, I get this little finger with these two double arrows. And what I can do is click and drag. And when I drag, I can drag to the right to lighten up those tonal regions, or I can drag to the left to darken up those tonal regions. And anything that is in the same tonal range as whatever area I'm clicking on will automatically be affected by whatever direction I drag that slider. So let's go ahead and we'll brighten the area of his forehead up here. And you'll see here I'm opening up mainly the whole area of his face because that area is completely affected by all those tones that I was overlaying when I was dragging that slider back and forth. Now the same holds true for his shirt. If I wanted to darken the area of his shirt, I could do so simply by dragging there. Now you'll also notice that I'm affecting other areas inside of his face as well, and that's because you don't get localized control. This is the same as Camera Raw in the fact that they haven't given you localized control over specific areas of color. You only get a broad selection of color over the entire image. So the tones in his shirt, there are some of those that lie in his face as well. So darkening up the shirt is going to darken up those tones as well. You're going to have to be a little bit careful when composing these black and whites simply because they don't give you, in my opinion, enough control to fully grasp the potential of what this black and white adjustment layer could truly be. However, it is miles ahead of any other conversion method I have ever seen. So I'm not complaining, I'm just saying that it really is somewhat limited in the fact that you don't get those selective color adjustments there. So now I'm going to move this out of the way because I'm going to come back over here into this area of the shirt, and let's just go ahead and we'll lighten that up a little bit by dragging it to the right. And then we might even come up here and we might darken up a little bit of the background just because that's a little hot, and I don't like for anything in a photograph to be completely white. And you'll notice here that we've gotten a fairly decent black and white conversion here on this image. If I show you here, here's the before when it's in color, and here's after. It's a pretty dramatic difference, and it's also very, very good in my opinion as far as maintaining the tonality throughout his face and the shirt and not really losing any areas to the shadows or highlights as far as clipping goes. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about inside the black and white adjustment layer is the ability to add in a tint to your photograph. Now, this is kind of like the split tone sliders inside of Camera Raw, except for the fact that you don't get independent controls over highlight and shadow hues. So you can add in a general overall tint, but not actually create a split tone. And that's another thing that I think they need to add into this dialog box. So Camera Raw has a better split toning engine, and the black and white adjustment layer has better black and white controls. So if they would just merge all that together, they could really avoid all of my gripes that I have about this program. There's really nothing to complain about if they would go ahead and merge all that together. But they haven't given me that, so I'm stuck with this tint slider down here, and it's actually fairly decent for creating some very nice sepia toned images. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll click that tint slider there, and you see by default it automatically goes into a sepia toned image, and it's really not that bad. But if you really don't like this conversion, you have the ability to go in here and tweak both the hue and the saturation. So let's say, for instance, if I wanted to push this more towards a blue side of the spectrum, because I think this looks a little bit better with maybe some blue in it, and then adjust the saturation accordingly. Now, I'm not going to push it too far because I don't want that oversaturated look where I get a lot of color distortion and things like that. I'm going to go ahead and just push this up to about 26%, and the hue that I chose was 228. So now that I'm finished with this, I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and there you have our finished black and white conversion image with a nice blue tint right here inside of Photoshop. And if at any time you needed to go back in and tweak that, you could just double click on this icon. Let's say you didn't want the tint anymore. Go ahead and deselect that tint, then click OK, and there you have your nice black and white fine art print. So now you should have a better understanding of how to effectively work with color here inside of Photoshop CS3.